Welcome to the What's Your Ceiling podcast. We're your hosts, Monte Wyatt and Paul Szynski. Wherever you are in life, there is a higher ceiling. This podcast is how you become aware of it and how to take action to push through it. It's time to discover your ceiling. Welcome to the What's Your Ceiling podcast, where we talk about your health, your family, your business. I'm your host, Monte Wyatt. If you're a CEO, a business owner, or an executive, then this is the show for you. We call our audience the Achiever because you're always striving for the next level. Today, we have a wonderful guest with us. He's an entrepreneur, a business owner, and a lifelong student of growth. Sean Rudner is the CEO of StockPKG. He leads a flexible packaging company serving food manufacturers across North America through manufacturing, converting, and distribution operations. Throughout his career, he's built businesses, navigated economic cycles, led organizations through rapid growth, and developed teams across multiple locations. Sean believes that many of life's greatest opportunities come when you're willing to become a beginner again. That mindset has led him far beyond the packaging industry into pursuits such as real estate, rock climbing, whitewater kayaking, horsemanship, regenerative agriculture, and livestock management. A passionate believer in continuous learning, Sean is known for building relationships, seeking out mentors, and challenging conventional thinking. His leadership philosophy centers on creating long-term value, developing people, and building organizations that can thrive for generations. Today, Sean is focused on growing his leaders, strengthening his businesses, and building a regenerative ranch in Southwest Iowa. Sean, welcome to What's Your Ceiling?
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. Looking forward to the conversation, hearing about your journey and how you've grown through breaking through your ceilings and how you've helped grow your business as well as you have grown yourself. So appreciate the opportunity. Well, I always like to start off with a brief topic of discussion. And I want to start off with the topic of a beginner's mindset. So when you hear me say that phrase, what does that mean to you?
It really kind of comes to mind that, you have a natural curiosity to learn something new. So, if you look at everything that you get yourself into with a beginner's mindset, that means you don't go into things with a whole lot of preconceived notions and that you're a little bit more open to learning, new topics, new advice, new ways to go about things. So that's kind of the way I look at things is I just try to go in with a natural curiosity and try to have an open mind. I mean, obviously experience gets in the way of that from sometimes, but yeah, I mean that's really what my goal is always to look at going into things with more of an open mind.
I love that. I love that. I think, I appreciate you sharing that. When I think of a beginner's mindset, it's always wanting to grow and learn and see new things from a different perspective. And everybody's got different viewpoints, different understanding, different ways of seeing things. And the more we can learn from each other, the more we can learn from different scenarios, the more we can solve greater problems. So I really like that beginner's mindset. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Yep.
I always like to have our guests tell a little bit about their story of how they've gotten into the business world. And so I'd like you to share your story and how you got into the packaging business.
Well, the packaging business was my father was a VP of operations for a company called Armin, which was a division of Tyco, you know, had been doing that since the 70s. It was kind of a natural progression of, you know, going and spending summers working out in the manufacturing plant and learning things kind of from the ground up and found that I really enjoyed, that process, the production process, understanding people and seeing what you can do with the equipment that's out there. It's especially in the custom packaging industry, you're constantly faced with new challenges. So it's not like running the same, nothing to take away from someone running the same part over and over and over again. You're trying to maximize efficiency, but with custom packaging and custom any kind of custom manufacturing, you're always looking for problem solving. So it's always you're always have to be on your toes and really trying to think through problems. So that's how I got into the packaging industry. Started at a very young age and have been in it ever since.
So you started the business.
So I started this business, yes. I mean, from scratch. We was this bootstrap business started in 2008. Had been in a previous business that I was a partner in back from 98 to 2004. Kind of found that I was probably better as an entrepreneur than an employee. Um, but so that's always been kind of my thought process is I would rather kind of go down that path of being able to see what happens and being responsible for your own actions at that point in time.
Wonderful. Well, tell us a little bit about the story over the last 18 years, and how what you've grown the business to, what you started with and where you're at today.
Well, this business was really started in my basement in Colorado when I was living there. I was just finishing up a non-compete from a previous business sale. And we pretty much bootstrapped this thing. It was kind of, just hit the Great Recession back in 2007 through 2009. Had lost a lot of money in real estate at that point in time. And so it was like, okay, what am I going to do? Well, my non-compete was up and I just went through my network and started dialing for dollars, basically for a lack of a better term. Making 50, 100 phone calls a day, working as commission broker or buying and reselling certain things and, just however I can make a buck. And, you know, this thing has gone through some absolute maturation. We literally were just a broker for, I don't know, from 2008 to 2007, call it 2021, really. And then at that point in time, um, I wanted to get back into manufacturing. My youngest had just graduated high school, so, there was going to be this empty nest thing, so I'd have this void in my life and I wanted to get back in and do something that I felt would create good careers for people and really just challenge more than just being able to just buy and resell something or going out and cutting a deal. I felt like there had to be some more value to my life at that point in time. So, we bought a small converter in Ohio in 21. Grew that pretty rapidly. They were running at, I don't know, probably 10 to 15% of their capacity, and we grew that fairly quick and started filling up capacity and adding equipment. And then in 23, I think we opened up our Atlanta, and then in 24 we opened up Phoenix. So it's been two greenfield starts after that, and just try to make a good national platform. And now we're just focused on filling capacity and coming out with, okay, what's next for us?
That is wonderful. You've had some great successes and love to hear the impact that you're having. I want to hear how when you went from being a broker to more into manufacturing, how did you have to change your mindset or your way of thinking to go down that different path?
Well, I don't think I ever left that path. That's the interesting thing. I mean, I grew up on the manufacturing side, stayed in manufacturing. The broker situation was more or less um, a means to an end. I mean, I guess as that, it was put deals together to put food on the table. Um, Manufacturing, I mean, it did take me a little bit of time to get my feet back underneath me. I mean, you spend, I don't know, 17 years out of manufacturing. It was a good portion of my life that was spent out of manufacturing. So I would say that, some of the big important things that I had to go back and relearn was developing more teams versus trying to do everything where you're a broker or it, or running a distributorship. It's a lot easier to fill in the gaps and be very dynamic as a founder, an owner, an entrepreneur than it is when you're in manufacturing, when you're relying upon people to do their quality checks and to, manage the business efficiently and set up orders correctly. So, it took me a little while to get back to, hey, this can't be done all on my own. I've got to make sure I'm getting our team on the same philosophy of what we're trying to promote as a company.
How did you do that? There's all kinds of challenges with teams, and everybody's at different growth stages. Everybody has their ideas. How did you get everybody on the same path to go after the same target?
Honestly, I don't know if I'm even there yet, to be honest with you. I mean, it's really it's a daily battle, and it's amazing at how people's agendas change because of their life circumstances that are outside of your control. And but you know, to me, it's important to really try to really take interest in those people's lives. I mean, this is the reason we were making plenty of money as a broker. That wasn't the issue. As a matter of fact, it probably was netting more money as a broker than we are as a manufacturer at this point in time. But to me, there was not as much of an impact in the world, after that. I mean, you start to look at what you want to do, and to me part of that is that I really hope that everybody that I interact with at some point in time in their life was happy that they interacted with me, that I was a positive part of their life. um that to me is important, I guess. So I guess taking an interest and a curiosity into people's lives and how you can help them, if you can help them. To me, a lot of that is, in our industry, there's really, you know, almost no schooling for manufacturing plastic packaging out there. So it's usually a an entry level position that you can create into a career is the best way I look at it. And if I can help people along that path and help them create a good career for them and their families, that's awesome.
You
That
know, I,
that to me that's a great feeling.
Yeah, I love that you said that. I want to reinforce to our audience, the achiever, that great leadership is helping other people succeed. And I love how you said that. Take interest in their lives so you can help them grow, help them be better, help make an impact on the world. That's great leadership. So I think that's amazing. I love that drive.
Well, thank you. I wouldn't say I'm at a great leader yet, but I'm working to be there. That's always the beginner mindset. I'm still along that path or that journey. So
Well, let's talk about that a little bit more. When you think of growing your leaders and taking an interest in them, helping them become better, how do you do that? How do you help them become better leaders?
stop telling and start asking. It's
Mm,
that simple. I think that most people find it easy to tell them what to do. It's easier for the employee and it's easier for the owner or the leader or the manager to tell people what to do. Um, to me, over the last year or two, I've tried to make a more conscious decision. Even though I might know the answer, I start asking the questions to get people thinking. Um, in life, especially with business, it is so easy to become robotic
mhm.
about everything. And I know a lot of entrepreneurs that would prefer to be surrounded by robots, or whatever the case may be. But then out goes creativity.
Yeah.
And when you lose creativity, then you lose kind of that sense of identity of the business and of what you're trying to provide. So my goal now has been how do I ask more questions of everyone that I interact with within our company? And it's kind of funny is I've done this. There's been quite a few times that I'll ask the questions thinking I'm trying to lead someone down a path, and they come up with some creative idea that I absolutely didn't think about. That's even a better answer than whatever I was trying to lead them to. And you're like, oh my gosh. And that just reinforces now what you're sitting there going, this is why I did it. So it's amazing when you start to get people thinking how problems get solved, and a lot of times they get solved much better than what you initially thought they were going to get solved as.
Absolutely. The person closest to the problem normally has the closest way to solve it, don't they?
Well, you find it's funny is that, I know a lot of consultants that have made their living that they just go around and ask the employees how to fix the problems, and then they just put it in a report and then charge whatever they charge for it. So, that's just, it's amazing at how if those managers would just go ask the employees, they probably have some pretty good answers for you. Not to take anything away from consultants. I mean, that is what it is, but, you know, a lot of times the answers are right there.
Yeah. So just as an example for our audience, the achiever, what's a good couple questions that you have as a go-to to ask your team when you're trying to solve a problem?
Well, I don't know if there's a couple of, I don't really have, you- I almost want to call it situational. I mean, it's so situational when you're dealing with it that you sit down and you start to look at, okay, but the first question I think you really have to start to peel back is what is the real root cause of the problem? So y- you know, I don't know. I think I read somewhere in one of these continuous improvement, or maybe saw it on YouTube or whatever. Well, someone basically said you almost have to ask that same question 5 times. That it's okay. The root cause was A, but okay, then what caused A? Well, then what's the root cause? Well, it's B. Then you go to C, then you go to D, and then you go to E. And that's usually about where the beginning of that first domino really fell to create that problem. And so that allows you to stop putting band-aids on situations and usually actually just fix the whole process problem. So do I say we do a good job of that at our company? I'm not gonna say we do a good job. I think we're getting better at it every single month. I mean, it's just we're always continually trying to, okay, how do we fix this so we don't have to talk about it again?
Yep. I love that. I think the five whys are a great way to think through that. Keep asking
That's it. Yes, thank you. I forgot what it was called, but you knew where I was going with the whole thing. So, Monty,
absolutely. The deeper you go, the more it becomes clear.
yeah, absolutely.
I love that. I think that finding out the root cause is probably one of the biggest things that people are challenged with because they want to solve something first. They want to get to it quicker than finding out the solution.
Yeah, get rid of the symptom.
Yeah,
I mean, that's really what it is that's the immediate pain. Give me the pill to get rid of the immediate pain. I don't want to get on the health regimen.
that's right. That's right. Oh, I love it. I love it. So we talked about growing your team and asking questions instead of telling. What do you do to grow yourself? How do you grow in your skills?
Um, Again, I think that just comes from some curiosity. I mean, it's amazing I always wonder how I would have turned out if YouTube was around when I was 20 years old. That's really I know that there was encyclopedias and all, but the content was much more filtered, not as deep, not as well thought. So I would say that I'm addicted to YouTube personally. I mean, I'm watching stuff every single night when I get a chance. So I mean, it's literally, I think I stopped watching regular TV. I just sit there and watch YouTube and, every spare moment that I have. So.
And there's any topic you want to discuss too, isn't there?
Yeah, yeah, you could. I mean, it's kind of funny. You can start running down rabbit holes that you would think that would have never interested you, and then all of a sudden you're learning about the Tang Dynasty or something like that, and you're like, oh wow, that's kind of how's that apply to life at this point in time? I mean, it's I know it sounds crazy, but I mean, like, the one thing my father, told me, and I don't even know how true this is, but this was his belief. He thought Sun Tzu, The Art of War, was the best business book ever written. So, but if you really think about it, that was kind of the culture of 70s, 80s, even early 90s business was everything was war.
Yeah,
I think the game's a lot different nowadays.
absolutely. Absolutely. You know, as you think about taking risks, what's a big risk that you took or a ceiling that you had to break through, and how did you get there? How did you break through it?
Well, I think, it's funny. I look at risk a little differently, especially, you know, because really anything that you do in business is never going to really kill you. So it doesn't end. It just, all you're looking at is how long is recovery time if I make a mistake?
Yeah,
That's really what it is how long is recovery time if I make a mistake and how much anxiety am I going to go through in that process? You know, no one's going to do a public hanging if you are 30 days late on a debt. Now, I'm not condoning paying your bills late or anything like that, but I'm saying is that the risk is more in our head than it is in reality when it comes to business. And so you know, in in I guess I look at ceilings as just setting goals and that the byproduct is the byproduct of achieving goals. And so if you're setting goals, and I know we're all taught the smart version of, make it specific, measurable, attainable, timetable and all that stuff. But the reality is that if you didn't hit a certain amount of sales in 2026, is life over? No, it's all right. What can I have learned from now? If you can't learn anything from that, then that probably is a failure at that point in time.
yeah,
But if you learn something from it and you still didn't achieve the goal, that's still a different level of success that you've gotten from there. So, I mean, it really kind of comes down to if you're playing the long game or not. If you're playing the long game, in life, in my opinion, even though every day is precious, is you're playing the long game. So I don't know if I actually really answered your question. I know I probably deflected that 20 different ways, but um, I guess every single thing is that, I try to take the same approach to everything especially when you start to hit a ceiling is, okay, how do I apply learning and discipline to those two things, take those two things and apply it to achieve a specific goal. And if you can't get past that ceiling, then maybe you got to divert and look at a different set of goals at that point in time, you know, and eventually come back to that goal. I mean, the funny thing is if you sit down and you think about it, the goals that you have at 30 are way different than the goals that you had at 40, which are way different than the goals that you have at 50, so on and so forth. And then so that means your ceilings are always changing throughout that period of time. So you
mhm,
got to kind of count on that change through that situation. Um, and then what you might find risky at 50 years old might not be all that risky at 25 years old. So it to me it's really hard to sit there and put a definition of risk and and success because those goalposts are always moving depending on the circumstances you're in at that moment.
Yeah. I really like what you said about you've got to apply learning and discipline to every goal because that's where you find out how you need to grow, what you need to do to achieve it, how consistent do you need to be, and what do you have to change in your behaviors to achieve that goal. And I think that's a big part of it is you can't achieve or break through a new ceiling unless you make changes to your behavior, make changes to your thought process and your discipline and your learning side. And the more you learn, the farther you can go.
That's exactly right. I mean, I know I made this whole thing with risk and all that very subjective because it is, but when you're setting goals, that's usually a pretty finite thing that I want to sell $100 million this year or whatever it is. Well, that's a finite number right there. You're setting something very specific. Well, you're going to have to do something completely differently than what you were doing at the time that you were selling 25 million or 50 million or 75 million. That there's something that has to change that you have to learn or you have already been there.
Yep,
Then you got to set a different set of discipline on that. And then you got to get the people around you to be disciplined to that and set up systems that'll allow you to do that.
I think that's a great point is to have that leverage, you've got to have your processes, your systems, so you can duplicate it. So you can do it more often, you can do it more effectively, and that's how you duplicate it with your team.
Yes. Yes. I mean, the difficult situation is we always seem to set our goals before we're really comfortable where we're at this point. And listen, I'm the worst about this. I mean, we launched a new ERP in July of last year. It's still a mess, and I'm still setting goals much higher than not letting things get stable. But what we're trying to do is create certain discipline within the company to say, okay, this might be a little bit of a mess, but we're going to take a process to that mess. And as we're taking a process to that mess, we still don't let things just sit there and stay flat because everyone else is growing around us. We have to figure out how to grow with that situation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. As you think about that growth or setting goals, is there anything that you've done to really cause your business to grow so fast? You've added locations, added manufacturing sites. Have you done anything particular that has been really helpful in those processes?
Well, I'm going to go back to people. And you know, when you first are starting to expand your team, sometimes you're hiring the wrong hires. And I'm not calling them bad people because they aren't. They might be very good people. They're just not what you need at that moment. And you're not what they need at that moment. So, but it's just bad timing for that match at that moment. We started laying out, we've become more and more clear about our expectations in every role in the company. And and then we also have that push number. You've got the number that you're responsible for, and then what's your push number? You know, um, I like to say that you got your numbers you turn into the bank that you can hit conservatively, and then you got your numbers that you hold internally that are your goals as your push numbers for internal use. And the way you keep your bank happy is destroy the numbers that you do every year. So that's really kind of where I look at it is trying to get more and more transparent about our expectations. I would say that's I think people in general want to live up to expectations,
Hmm.
as long as those expectations are realistic. I think the problem with a lot of companies, and we've had this problem multiple times, where you just don't clearly identify and get on the same page as on expectations. It's really it and at times I've actually had people on our team basically say, "Hey, Sean, you're being unrealistic about those expectations." Well, then the next question out of my mouth is, well, then how close do you think you can get to it?
Hmm.
If it's too far of a push, what do you think? This is where I'd love to be, but what do you think? And it's amazing. They always give me the bank numbers, the conservative numbers, but then their goal is to blow those away.
Yeah.
So we're always in that kind of game of, you know, pull and push, I guess. So hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, I really love what you said. It's about getting your team engaged and bought into what the expectation is. And if they aren't clear on it, they don't know how hard they need to be working or what's exciting for them or where they're headed. But you've got to have that visibility of it and on the same page to get people really excited about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's wonderful. Have you always been that clear, or is that something that you've learned here in the last few years?
Oh, it's definitely something I've learned in the last few years. I mean, that's just, usually I'm driving ahead and you, you know, the more I've learned that I can't I can't fill in every gap. No human being can. I mean, and I've worked with, done business with some extremely dynamic people that I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy is incredible in this specific subset. You still can't fill in every gap that's out there. I mean, you're eventually going to leave collateral damage all over the place. And so, you know, it's either someone else is over there cleaning it up or you fill in those gaps before it happens.
Yep.
And the more I'm learning at trying to be a good leader is filling those gaps before it happens, and then there's less to clean up.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean we don't leave collateral damage, but we do, but it's less and less now.
I really like the message, and I want to reinforce this to our audience, the achiever. It is about getting your team engaged and teaching them how to think. The more you ask them questions, the more you get them engaged, the more they know what success looks like, those expectations, the more they want to be a part of something. And I think that's a powerful thing for team members is to be a part of something that's bigger than them. And I think if you can build that, then you've got energy with your team. You've got excitement. You've got people that want to grow to make those changes.
Uh, You hit it. You hit it on the head. I mean, there's a lot of ways to make money. To me, when you can make everybody around you much better, then everyone gets a fair share and they all get growth. So yeah, that's really what I want is I want someone at the end of the day said that, I worked for Stock PKG and that was a great part of my life
Yeah,
at the end.
yeah. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. How would you say you're different today than you were 2 or 3 years ago?
I would say through 2, 3 years ago, I felt like the obligation to fix everyone's problems. I
Mm.
think that, you know, um, now I feel like, all right, we've got to start letting people make some mistakes and learn from those mistakes and not crucify them for making mistakes. Just because you disagree with how they approached it doesn't always necessarily, I mean, as long as you're not doing anything that would, you know, if someone's doing something, you don't want anybody to do anything unethical or anything along those lines that might tarnish the reputation of the business and represent the business well. But people have got to make mistakes. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just that I've made more than I can dream about over my lifetime. I mean, it just, hopefully I learned from each of them. But that's probably a little bit more tolerance for people taking risks and making decisions. Um, it's funny, we've got three different operations managers and each of them now are, you know, they're not running everything past me, which is great. Um, Sometimes they're taking risks that I probably wouldn't have, but um, and it's funny because they all of a sudden they might be doing something. I'm like, oh my God. But they knew they did it with the best interest of the company at heart. That's really
Mhm.
what was most important to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I really like that because and how how did you get to that point where you went from solving their problem to letting them solve it themselves? What did you have to go through and how did you change to do that?
Complete and utter exhaustion. It was just really, I mean, it was going from working literally 18 hours a day, working every weekend, 10 to 12 hours a day on the weekends. I mean, it was a scenario where it was like getting to the point where it was unhealthy.
Hmm.
I mean, you know, it was very interesting when we were more of a broker distributor only, you always had plenty of time to make time for the fam. I knew once we got back into manufacturing it, we had to kind of be that empty nest scenario from the family situation. My kids were off at college and so um I had my foot on the gas pedal for a good 4 or 5 years pretty hard. And in the last couple of years it's been like, okay, how do I start giving enough rope because I can't make every decision, nor am I qualified to make every decision. That's the other thing I really had to come to grips with is that, you know, I'm not the one that's working with this software for our manufacturing on a daily basis. So my input should be a lot less than the guys that are on the floor dealing with it and accounting that's dealing with the consequences and customer service who's dealing with order entry and all that stuff that you know might sound great when I'm sitting there trying to look at working with our developers on something like that oh, I can tell you how to do this and that, but reality is what goes on in my head might not translate very well on the day-to-day situation. And now they're having to create workarounds because of my stupid idea. So I had to really learn that a lot of times I'm not the most qualified person to be having that conversation.
Hmm. Yeah. That's a big learning for leaders, managers, and CEOs it's not all on their shoulders. They've got to get their team engaged. They've got to get their team to take ownership, and they are the knowledgeable ones. You're making progress. You're helping challenge them, but they're the ones that need to make those kinds of decisions.
Absolutely. Yeah. I would say that the more you think about it, I also think that people enjoy their job a lot more and are a lot better part of the process when you allow that creativity to happen. They're gonna blossom. If they aren't, then you got the wrong people there.
Right.
That's an easy thing to figure out.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Just thinking of all of this working and your transition over the last couple of years, last few years, how do you balance your personal life and work life?
Um, so that has gotten a lot easier in the last year or two since I started becoming more of a listener than instead of telling people how to do things. It's taken a lot of the pressure off of me. And Now it's just, got back into other interests. Not that I'm letting this interest fail. I think I've become more productive in less amount of time because I found other things that have got me interested as well. I mean, we were talking about this before, I'm now into livestock and horses and all that kind of stuff. And it's kind of funny, you run into the same kind of problems that with that business as you do with any other business, you're looking at how do you get better? How do you make things, you know, systems work better for you and that you're not killing yourself. I mean, it's funny, I got family in central Iowa and always watch my cousins go, well, we did this to make our jobs easier. And you're like, why would you spend that kind of money to shave 10 minutes a day out of your world? And now that you're in it, you start to think about it in those kind of terms, and then you can bring that right back to your other business. It's okay. Yeah, 10 minutes a day does make a difference. How do we save that 10 minutes a day? Whether that's 10 minutes of unwind time where an employee can sit down and decompress, or it's 10 minutes of now they're doing something more productive. So it really, all that stuff kind of translates back and forth. And so that's the cool thing about going into this situation for me is I'm looking at it from a beginner. You learn these lessons from this industry, and then you take it over to this industry and makes your business that much better.
Yeah, I love that. It's constant learning and then using that knowledge in other areas to help your business grow, yourself grow, and find those opportunities. I love that. I love that.
It reminds me of, and I know we were talking about family for a second, but I've been in the packaging business mostly on for the last almost 40 years. Like I said, I had that non-compete for 4 years, but other than that, I've been in thousands of manufacturing plants over that 40-year period of time, visiting customers, suppliers, so on and so forth. And I remember meeting with a customer a couple weeks ago, and they're like, "Where do you see you create value?" And I'm like, "The thousand plus plants that I've been in, I've seen a lot of ways to do the same thing, and I learned from each one of those things. It's just that experience of walking into a supplier or a customer is is absolutely the best experience because you're now seeing how they do it versus how you're doing it, and you're learning from that situation and hopefully bringing value to them, saying that I've seen this done this way before. Maybe that'll help you out.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. It's been a great conversation, and I want to summarize a few bullets. But before I do that, I want to ask one last question, and it's what do you want to be known for?
Um, hope Me personally, hopefully the guy that helped facilitate improving people's lives.
I love that. Yep. It's all about helping others, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Everything else is a byproduct. Anything that you could ever want is a byproduct of helping others. The money comes from adding value to other people's lives. The the feeling of success comes from helping other people. It's just a byproduct. I mean, you don't focus on the byproducts, you focus on helping people, and everything else just kind of falls into place.
Yep. Yep. I love that. Great. Great. You shared some great things with us, and I want to reinforce them to our audience. And you said it what you want to be known for is help improve lives, and you grow leaders by asking more questions than you do telling. And that was something that you shared that's different from 2 to 3 years ago to now, and it was exhaustion for you. And until you really let people solve their own problems and take the ownership of it, it was nasty work. It was hard work. It was a lot of hours. And now it's letting them become creative. It's getting them to take ownership of their expectations. And I love to hear that. And to that part of the expectations is being clear of what success looks like. So everybody knows what they're working towards and they believe in it, they can work hard for it, and they own it. And I think that's a powerful thing to remember, that we want our team to be successful and we help them to be successful with that clarity. So I really appreciate all those things that you shared.
Thank you. I appreciate it too.
If there was one thing that you'd like to share with our audience, the achiever, what one suggestion would you have for them?
Just commit to learning and be disciplined about it. That's the only thing I can say is don't you don't have to know everything, just have the want to learn as much as you possibly can.
Awesome. Awesome. Sean, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a great conversation. Love how you've grown yourself, your business, and your team, and that's shown great results to who you are and what your business is today. So, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate your insights. And to our listeners, please share and like this episode, and keep growing, keep learning, and keep breaking through your ceilings. Thanks for joining us.